So welcome to stage 3. In this episode what we're going to do is we are going to make up some wires. We'll do a little bit of soldering, or a lot more soldering actually. We're going to attach this motor to the lower chassis. We're also going to hook up the diff bracket, sorry, the differential cog, and we'll get all that connected together and we'll get some wheel axles on. So let's get started then. Okay, so for this week we will need the following parts. We need 219 motor coupler, 201 gear brackets, 2 2019A, which is the upper chassis part 1, and then we will need 3 rear axles, which is part 30 2019. Now let's just rearrange these. There we go. Right, so we will need 2 motor axles, so what we need to do is load one up and then we will just multiply that. So I'm going to make a few little changes to the way these are arranged. First of all, these motor axles, I'm recommending you do them in silver. The edges may be on show. I've just included them on this print bed just to show you the total amount of time. Now this chassis, I prefer to print it this way round, so that you've got this little wheel arch is going upwards. It will print very nicely. It's very well designed. If you notice that this isn't actually a hole, it's got a little teardrop shape, and that really does help 3D print. Secondly, this piece here, which is the gear bracket, I personally prefer to print that flat, like so, and then the motor coupler, which is over the other side of the print bed, you can print it like this and it will work. It'll create a little bit of a flat spot. For me, it printed better this way up. So this will be a long print. Obviously this will be split down into 2 prints because you'll be doing the axles separately. We'll just let that slice. Seems to be going quite slowly for me today, as always. So so that's about a 7-hour print. If we just remove the silver pieces and then we do another slice, we will then be able to see how much we'll be able to roughly work out. What do we say, 7 minutes? So it's about 6 hours for the silver prints and about an hour for the it's about 6 hours for the black pieces and about an hour for the silver pieces. In addition, we need to buy some servos, and as I said before, we should have pre-ordered these, but these come in packs of 6. We will need 5 in total. There are some better servos out there, but these are a really good fit, and I believe they'll do the job. We will also need some 5x10x4mm bearings. Now these come in packs of 10, and I believe we will need 1 pack. Let's just have a quick check. So the parts list, 5x10, we actually need 1 bearing, so we will need to buy a pack of 10. The next thing we need to buy, now I've got 30cm servo extension cables. Originally we'd found 15cm. As a result, I've got to cut 2 ends off and join them to make one 30cm one, but obviously if you get these ones you won't need to do that. We then also need some 12x18x4mm bearings. I think we're going to need 2 of those. 12, yeah, we need those for the rear wheels. And then thinking about ahead, let me find the right page. Whoops, wrong page. So if we look ahead to week 7, because we like to buy the parts in advance, we need steering arms, caps and rear side arms. Now we have looked everywhere for various things. The side arms, the front side arms, we've gone for these. These have come from Hobby King, and this is a global site. but we found that they're actually, for myself in the UK, they are actually quite speedy delivery. The caps we get from Banggood for their £3 4p. Now the rear arms, we had so much trouble. I've actually ordered some about 3 months previous and they still haven't been in stock. So we've actually discovered Al's Hobbies. I think this is a UK based company. Yeah, it's based in Milton Keynes. You get 2 of these in a pack for £1.99, a little bit more expensive than Banggood, but these came within a few days, so I was very happy with that. Okay, so here's my parts for this week. We have the other part of the lower chassis, so this will eventually go on to there, like so, one way or the other, I'll figure it out. We have a motor bearing bracket that will go on to there, and we will have the other piece of the diff in place like so, so that will connect that. We've got the motor coupling, which we will have one end will go on to there and one end will go on to the motor. And this is nice because it's got a little shaped piece. I don't know if you can see it. That lines up with the flat piece on the motor, and I've actually printed this upside down so it's actually not going to fit properly. That's fine, we can adjust that. Then we have 2 motor axles which will eventually go on to there, and then that will drive the wheels. We've also got two of our 6 servos. They will come out the back, they will connect the rear arms at the back, and we also need 2 servo cables if you have a 15cm one, only the one if you've got the 30. We'll need 2 JST connectors, 1 male, 1 female, and what we're going to do is we're going to make an extension cable. Okay guys, so the first thing I'm going to do is solder these up. You saw me soldering last week, so you don't need to see me soldering again. So I will just, I'll just cut the camera here and I'll record it and then I'll play it back, speed it up. Okay. Okay, this first bit I'm just going to have to do, talk you through it because the camera went wrong. I got 2 JST connectors and I cut opposite ends off. What I've done is I'm now starting to strip the wires. Just strip just a little tiny end off each bit, just so that I've got something to solder together, like so. So that one didn't strip. Okay, I'll finish that one off with a knife. Okay, so I'll carry on from there then. Okay, so we've made our wires. I've put a little extra connector, shrink wrap in the middle, just to stiffen up, because obviously these are originally welded together. I've had to separate them, so I've just done this just to clamp them together, and I might as well have done the same thing with the JST connector. So the next part that we'll need is some 5x10 by 4mm bearings. We just need the one, and that needs to go into here. Now there should be a little lip on this side, so you can only push them in from one side, and that will go in there. Might be a little bit stiff, it really depends on your printer. Got to remember, because I'm printing it this far down, if my printer is just ever so slightly too close to the print bed, it is just going to close that gap up a little bit. So what we can do is just get a little knife and just go around that, or alternatively you can use a file. Be careful not to remove the lip on the other side. So I'm actually going in at an angle. That is almost there. So there we go, that's gone in absolutely fine. So the diff is going to go into there, like so, and that will rest there. And do need some movement forwards and backwards just so that we can adjust that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to screw that in with a 16mm button head screw, and just bear with me while I get my screwdriver. So I've decided to be really lazy. I'm going to use an electric screwdriver. Doesn't matter whether you use an electric or a manual one. And oh, look at that, that's gone in absolutely perfect. That's fantastic. So in fact, I'll just put the one screw in at a time. So we'll line this first screw up, and I just want to get that started. Tell you what, should we do that with the correct size head? That would work better, won't it? There we go. So got that started. So you got to remember these screws are going to bite in, so it will be difficult to screw them in because they've got to cut through the plastic. This is why I tend to do an extra slight layer or two on the wall width, because if it's a very, very thin wall, you're not going to have an awful left by the time these screws have bitten in. I don't think they're going to bite in an awful lot. Do you know what? I think with the struggle this electric screwdriver's having, I think I might be better off using a manual. So there we go. Lovely. So we've got this diff in now, and you see there will be a little bit of movement, and that just gives us room to adjust. So next thing we want to do is just make sure that fits onto there. This is the motor coupler. We also want to make sure that this end fits on the motor. Now the motor has got a slight flattening on it, and this also has a flattening, so we just want to, that's not going to happen. This is just where it's gone a little bit too close to the print bed. So what's happened is it's squished the layers down a little bit more than usual, which is obviously creating less space. So that's almost there. So one thing I never really thought about is that you actually want to probably print it this way up. You see with this hole, the two holes, the larger hole at the top, rather than this way, because you can see the potential problems I have. It's not the end of the world. Just keep trimming this away. Slightly awkward because of the shape of it. It's not a perfect circle, and we don't want to turn that into a perfect circle, but that's now gone on fine, look. So what I will now do then is we want to take the lower chassis. I haven't connected this connector yet. So this lower chassis, you want the bottom of the wheels there. You'll have a hole here, and this hole goes all the way through. Let me show you. So there is a hole all the way through. You can see that poking out, and this actually lines up with the hole like so. So that will create a channel. See if I can get a better connector to go through. So we see we can push wires all the way through. So what we want to do is we want to take our servos. Now be very, very careful with these servos because they come with a little bag of screws and bits. We will need some of those, but not this week. So we need to make sure they're safe. And then what we will do, I will pop those back in the same bag and keep those for later. And we need to pop one servo through there, in like that, and this servo will eventually sit like this, so like that, and then this servo is going to go in through there, and this space is going to get very tight. Each time you thread a wire through, it will get a little bit more difficult because there's less room. Now, whereas I said this servo will sit like this servo is going to sit like this. So it's going to get a bit tight, so try where possible just to get your wires tidy. So what I'm going to do is this servo, I'm going to pull this wire back, and this wire I'm going to pull down. So the next wire that we're going to pop in is going to be the servo extension cable. Now, we actually want this large end. You see there's a large end and a smaller end, or male and female. We want the male end to be at the back. So we're going to have to thread this through from the back. And already it's getting tricky. But what we can do to help us is to now remove this piece of chassis, and we can pop that through there, fold this back, and then we can fold the servo through, and then we have one more wire to thread through, and that's the JST connector, and we want the small end, the male end, at the back. Because of the size, I personally find it easier to thread this one from the front. 3 of them threading from the back, 1 of them threading from the front. And like I say, things are getting tighter now. So we want to wiggle that through as best we can. Be as neat as you can, but I'll be honest with you, I don't think it's imperative that they're absolutely neat. So I'm now going to thread all of these wires down. And you see it's going to get a little bit awkward there because we have the heat shrink from the servo extension cable. That's got to work its way through. So that's coming through nicely. The servos and the JST. I'll just bring this in. Now that's actually come out too far, so we need to thread that back. And there we go. So this wants to come up. So the next job, we want to now connect. You might want to have a little practice here. What we're going to end up doing, you see you've got some screw holes at the bottom there. We want to get these wires running through the middle. We then want to get them running through this channel. So we want to kind of practice running those through so that everything runs freely. We don't want to trap the wires. So I would suggest at this stage, if they run freely, they're probably going to be okay. So what we want to do now is we want to take this out. We want to connect the motor coupling to the motor. However, I wouldn't screw it in just yet. There is a reason for that. So what we then want to do, if we just adjust this coupling, you see there's a hole, small hole on this end, and we want to just get that roughly to the top, and then we want to move our diff so it's roughly to the top. And then what we need is some 2mm or M2 10mm screw bolts, sorry, and I've just got to remember where I stored them. Right, so M2 10mm, and what we are going to do is take one of these. So we now want to try and pop this motor in and then slide this over. You see there I've got the motor coupling on, and then we just want to pop this screw in, and that's fallen out. That's going to happen a few times, I'm afraid, guys. So this is a really awkward one because it's smaller as well. That doesn't help at all. And I would use a manual screwdriver here. Just gives you a little bit more control. This is frustrating when you keep dropping screws. Right, so we just want to adjust that. That I can see all the way through, so that is fine. I'm just going to screw that through. Apologies for my hand in the way. And we just want to screw this through, and if we come to a full stop very early, it means that we haven't lined the diff up properly. There we go. And this may not go all, it may actually not come to a stop. As long as you can't pull it out, that's fine. So what we now want to do, see the JST connectors that we've attached to the motors, very gently fold those up. That will just give us a bit more space to work with. Do it slowly, you don't want to snap them off. And then we want to just roll this around. We want to make sure that we haven't trapped the wires in. If we're confident we haven't trapped the wires in, what we'll do is we'll attach the motor bracket, and what we're actually going to do is we're going to attach it, tighten it up, and then we will loosen it again so that we can adjust this part here. So holding the motor down, once you're confident that it hasn't trapped any wires, we want to hold that motor down as hard as we can and then line up the screw. And we want 8mm screws, that's all we need. I was as surprised as you probably are now. So that's one screw in, and then I'm going to go the opposite corner, still holding that motor down hard onto the chassis. There we go. So now what we'll do is we will test our wires. So we'll get this servo, and as you can see I can slide this servo wire through, so that's not trapped. We'll take the other servo, we'll do the same, that's not trapped. This JST connector I'm a little bit concerned about. That's actually not going to slide too much, but that will slide, so that hasn't been trapped either. Then we take the servo extension, and oh, lots of movement there. So we know that the wires haven't been trapped, so that's really good. So what we need to do now is we need to take we need to just finish up doing this motor with all 4 screws, and then once we've done that, it'll sound like we're working backwards, but we're going to adjust the motor position. Oh, can't find the hole. There we go. So, if you're anything like me, your hand will be aching now, because it is hard work. I'm not going to deny that. So, what we want to do is we now want to slacken off these screws probably about 1/4 to 1/2 a turn. Not much. What we don't want is it slackens so much that we can trap the wires, and you should be able to move this motor, which I can. So what I want to do is I want to jam that in as hard as I can forwards, hold that down, tighten up 2 of the screws. I've gone for opposite corners there, and I just want to check, because then I want to make sure that diff is touching properly, which I can see it is by rotating. So once I'm happy, I'll finish the other. Be aware that this is still loose, and we'll sort that out shortly. There we go. Right, so now we've done that, we now want an 8mm button head screw, and we can just screw that onto there. I'll be honest with you guys, I don't think having this screw or not having this screw is actually making much difference, but that's the instructions. That's what we will do. So don't be alarmed by the fact that this screw doesn't go all the way down. If you've got a smaller screw, that's fine. What you should be concerned about is that there's no, obviously you've got some wires down near the bottom. What you do not want is that this screw is so long it catches on those. I can see that there's a good amount of clearance there, so I'm confident that won't catch my wires. Right, so once we've got this in, we want to attach the this to this. So we'll do 2 things. We need 2 nuts, and we need 2 16mm button head screws, and on the back there you'll see two nut holes. We'll pop a nut into there, actually we'll do it a different way. We'll actually attach the diff in properly first, because we're going to be popping 2 screws in there, and that will line things up for us. So I want an 8mm M3 8mm button head screw, which will go into there. It's very hard to see the holes because it's black on black, so you kind of go more by the feel than anything else. So that's that one in, and then there we go, that's got in. Lovely, very happy. So now that diff bracket is solid as anything. So now we can let go a little bit now. So I just want to pop a nut into there, if it will go. I do struggle with these sometimes. There we go, a little nut gone in there, and a little nut has gone to here. It hasn't gone into here. It's trying to go in. Now, some of you may be shouting, use tweezers. Some of you may actually know what I'm like with tweezers. So, right, and this, we'll finish this off with a 16mm button head screw, and that goes into there. Hopefully I've lined the nut up properly. There we go, that one's gone in. Oh, that's not. It's interesting. Right, I'll come back to that one. I've had a little bit of a problem. The nut is spinning around in the hole. So I wonder if there was a bit of gunk left in there perhaps. But this one seems to be going in fine. There we go. And what that will do, once it reaches the end, it will just pull that nut down. Okay. Yeah, that's spinning that nut down. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to jam something into there just to stop it from spinning. There we go. So obviously I don't want to undo this now, because I'm going to have a bit of problems with it if I undo it. But we've got round the problem. There we go. So that's it. So that just leaves 2 more bits. and that is the axles. Now we need the 102C bearings. We need 2 of these, and what we need to do is we need to place them on here, there. This piece with the hole is going to go onto the diff, and this is going to go, it'll eventually slot into there like that. You see these little channels in there, absolutely perfect fit. And then obviously there'll be another piece come on and clamp it on. So we may find that this piece is a little bit too fat for the bearings. That's just how it goes with the printing, but we don't want this all the way up. So what we'll need to do is give this a little filing. You can either use sandpaper, needle file, scrape it with a knife, whatever you want to do, and just do little by little. I find what is easier is once you reach a certain point and you can just get it over the end, get a small hammer, not a metal hammer, either a craft hammer or a rubber hammer, and you can just gently knock that on. That's not quite there yet. Let's try the hammer, shall we? So you're going to notice I'm only knocking this gently. It might not even be ready for knocking with a hammer. I don't think it's quite ready yet. So that's... If you do insist on using a knife like I am, keep your thumb right out of the way. Oh, I've cut in the wrong bit, look. How daft is that? So remember, it's this middle ridge that we're adjusting. Don't worry about the state of it. If it starts to look a bit scruffy, because this bit's all going to be hidden. Right, I think it's... Oh, there we go, we're getting somewhere now. Right, once we get this over, a really easy way to do this. There we go. Is to actually place it in. Oh, actually I've got that in. So I've actually, right, as I popped it in, see you've got the holes on the diff. You actually need to line the hole up there, like so, and then we will need another M2 10mm button head screw, and that will go on like that, and that will stop that axle from falling off. So also, if you remember in stage 1 I did mention about the diff brackets being at an angle, and obviously we did adjust the bottom of the diff brackets. However, that is not lined up, is it? Because if that was lined up properly, that would be going in easily. So, and what's good about these screws is they are actually just ever so slightly wider than the diff, so they will kind of cut into it. But if these aren't lined up 100%, you will have a difficult time putting them through. And I think that I'm going to just switch to my electric screwdriver just for speed. Struggling here. Why am I struggling? Right, I can see what's happened. It's actually pushing in too far. There we go. So straight through, straight through. So that will go all the way through. You won't reach a point where it just stops, but as long as that's not going to fall out easily, that's going to be fine. So that moves around. Now, so a little trick, what you want to do is gently tap this with something, hold this bearing down and just tap that end in, and what that will do is it will just push that diff holder in a little bit better. So we'll do the same with the other end. Hopefully it won't take too long. And I've just roughly chopped it. I just want to get the bearing over the end. As long as we tap this gently, we can actually force it along. If it's too loose, it can actually fall off. So, and obviously this one should be easier to do, because we know from the last one how much effort we've had to do for it. And that's going in. I'm only doing gentle taps, very, very gentle. We don't want to break the bearing, and you'll probably find that once you get it over the first lip, it'll be really, really easy. There we go. I'm going to take that down to about halfway. So we get this lined up there. So another M2 10mm. Is the end gone? I've lost the end of my screw. I think that's gone in. Look at that first time. Lovely, very happy with that. Right, so we'll hold this bearing down, we'll give this a gentle tap, and what that will do is that will just push that in further, and I'll just hold those diff brackets in. So guys, you're going to want to test, aren't you? Obviously. So I will get a battery or some kind of power supply. Don't go over 9 volts because this battery is only up to 9 volts. And then this might get a bit noisy. So you see that the axles are going round, they're both going round in the same direction, and if I should hold one, you see that this one holds still but the other one continues to turn. Likewise if I hold the other one, and you can see how that's going smoothly. It's not jumping, so I would say I've adjusted that diff absolutely perfect. You can see that the screws are going around in there, they're not catching on the wires. I would say that's a very, very good result, so I'm really happy with that. Okay guys, so I'm going to just take this battery out because it is a little bit noisy, but that did warn us on the Banggood site as well. So you might want to just tidy these wires up however you want to tidy them up. At this particular point we don't know exactly what's happening with its wires. I suspect the JST and the servo extension will come back a little bit, but like I say, we don't actually know what's going to happen. So that's the result guys, and I will see you in the next video.